In the spring of 1692, Giles Corey was 80 years old when his wife was suddenly accused of witchcraft. Prior to this, Corey had done well for himself, amassing a small fortune as a New England landowner. His story is about as close to the American dream as one can get. Being born to humble circumstances in England, Corey immigrated to New England around the year 1640, taking work as a hired farmhand. Over time, he was able to purchase his own property and later expand his influence to the point where he was a successful landowner, employing scores of people. Everything seemed to have worked out in his favor until, for reasons not completely understood, the entire town in which he lived in, called Salem, Massachusetts, completely lost touch with reality. Not long after having his wife accused of witchcraft, several other unsuspecting women were also accused of being witches. A mania had swept throughout the town, and people were finding so-called witches everywhere they cared to look. The entire town was in such a frenzy that even Giles started to believe that his wife might just be a witch. These suspicions, however, quickly turned to certainty. When Corey himself was accused of being a wizard, he realized that the whole movement was a fraud. It was only after he had come under the relentless persecution of the mob that he understood exactly what was going on. Unfortunately for Corey, his enlightenment did nothing to save him. The Puritan preachers of Salem took every accusation very seriously. The pervading sentiment was such that the concept of habeas corpus was scorned, and the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise was reversed. Supposedly, these Christian preachers felt that it was their preordained duty to protect the townsfolk from the systemic witchcraft that had suddenly become so pervasive in Salem. As a result, those who had been accused, not tried and convicted, mind you, were quickly punished. Of those punished was Giles Corey. On April 18th, 1692, he was charged and arrested, along with several other people from the town. The following day, they were examined by the religious authorities. During these bizarre proceedings, one of Corey's companions in his plight, a woman by the name of Abigail Hobbs, told the authorities that Corey was indeed a wizard. It is very likely that she was either told or had concluded on her own that by dragging other innocents down with her, and by cooperating with the madness, she might receive a less severe punishment. Corey denied the accusations and refused to plead in any way. He refused to legitimize those in power and rejected the entire charade out of principle. Nonetheless, he was sentenced to prison and later arraigned at the September sitting of the town court. The records of the court contain a deposition by one of the people who accused Giles of witchcraft. Quote, "I saw the apparition of Giles Corey come and afflict me, urging me to write in his book, and so he continued most dreadfully to hurt me by times, beating me and almost breaking my back till the day of his examination, being the 19th of April, and then also, during the time of his examination, he did afflict and torture me most grievously, and also several times since urging me vehemently to write in his book, and I verily believe in my heart that Giles Corey is a dreadful wizard, for since he has been in prison, he or his appearance has come and most grievously tormented me." End quote. Still, Corey refused to plead. Due to the laws of the time, those who refused to plead could not be tried. To avoid his cheating justice, the fanatics of the time implemented what was called peine forte et dure, which amounted to slow torture by crushing the person with more and more weight. A contemporary description of the process tells us that, quote, "remanded to the prison from whence he came, and put into a low dark chamber, and there be laid on his back on the bare floor, naked, unless when decency forbids, that there be placed upon his body as a great weight as he could bear, and more, that he hath no sustenance, save only on the first day 3 morsels of the worst bread, and the second day 3 draughts of standing water, that should be alternately his daily diet till he died or till he answered." End quote. In this process, Giles Corey was stripped naked and tied to a solid platform raised a few feet off the ground. He was then covered with a wooden board on which a number of heavy stones were placed. For 3 days, Corey endured heavier and heavier weight. He was demanded to plead, but he steadfastly refused. He bore his torture stoically and did not even cry out in pain as the rocks were placed on the board. After 2 days, Corey was asked 3 times to enter a plea, but each time he replied, "more weight," and his request was granted. After 3 days of this barbaric proceeding, Corey, who was 80 years old, finally died. His refusal to plead, which was extremely rare given the torture inflicted on people who didn't cooperate, meant that he was never convicted of anything, and his estate was able to legally pass to his two sons-in-law, in accordance with his will. 3 days after his death, Corey's wife was hung. It is interesting to note that the gruesome and public nature of Corey's death played a pivotal role in ending the witch mania in Salem. Due to his heroic refusal to give in under the horrible torture, Giles Corey set an example in truth and honesty for the rest of Salem. Having witnessed such awful treatment of a clearly innocent man, people began to rethink the witch trials altogether. All it took was the slow death of an innocent 80-year-old man.